I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Jayson.
And we are father
and son.
And Jayson, what are we talking about this time, sir?
We're talking about the first season of X-Men.
The 90s Fox animated X-Men series. We talked about doing this when we were finished with the whole show, like we did with The Tick, but there is five seasons of this show, and they cram a lot into a season. You know, I mean, like they're rushing stuff, trying to get certain things that are popular right then in the comics in there. We'll talk about that. And I mean, like 8 or 9 episodes in, and it feels like a show that's been on for like 3 or 4 years already. Where you're like, how are we already to this point in this show? And so I figured, if we tried to do the entire series in one video, there'd be stuff that we didn't get to, or we'd have to rush just like this show does. So we're going to go ahead and do this a season at a time. People have asked me to talk about this for years, and so I'm glad that we're finally getting some content in on it. Jayson, this is a show that I watched some when it was on. I never thought of myself as a big X-Men fan. I always loved Wolverine, but I never thought of myself as a giant X-Men fan. And I think after the first couple of movies, I started thinking of myself a little bit more that way. But I was excited for those movies because of some of the characters they picked, because they were people that I knew from this show. And it clearly was an influence on those movies. So anyway, what are your first impressions of watching the first season of X-Men?
So I like this show. It's very silly.
Yeah.
It has some really silly things in it. And we'll get to like the most silly things.
Did you make a list?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I made, well,
we're gonna do a countdown of silly X-Men things?
I picked like 2 or 3.
Okay, cool.
That I just thought were really funny. So.
Do you think the show has any idea? Like how silly it sometimes gets?
Probably.
I'm never sure about that.
I don't know.
You know, because it, relative to other, of course, Saturday morning cartoons, I mean, it takes itself pretty seriously. Spider-Man had the same thing. I think this holds up better than Spider-Man did. And I think the stories make more sense than that sometimes did. I think the drama is less awkward, generally, and the plotting generally is less awkward. But I'm not sure if it always realizes how certain things come off, particularly some animation choices. Like, it's not always just weird lines of dialogue. Sometimes it's just an attempt at making something look kind of like realistic and fluid in a scene where it just comes off hokey, and you're like, why is this scene still going on? You know, characters that just stay on frame too long, and then we have to wait and watch them walk off and stuff like that. It gets really funny.
Yeah. Should we do like the top 3 silly things right now?
No, let's not. Oh, let's not start with silly things.
Okay.
Let's talk about some of the stuff that we really like about the show first, maybe.
Okay. The good things?
Yeah, you want to start with good things, or you want to start with characters?
Let's start with characters.
Okay, cool.
So, I really like Wolverine.
Yeah.
I think he has a really good backstory. I think that, like...
We don't really get much of his backstory yet, right? We haven't even talked about Weapon X yet.
Well, but, like, his character arc, kind of.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. I just didn't know what you meant when you said backstory, because we haven't gotten any origin for Wolverine yet at all.
Yeah. But, like, kind of just, like, his character. Where, like, he's, like, really mad, and he's trying to, like, not be all mad all the time.
Yeah.
I really like that.
He's got an anger management problem.
Yeah.
I think we keep a lot of characters in the first season really mysterious, and there's always kind of a question of loyalty. And this is really cool for a cartoon show for kids. And I think this is one of the things that a lot of kids really liked about it and really picked up on. It felt really mature to them, even as silly as it sometimes gets. There's a lot of moral ambiguity in the show. There's a lot of talk about how we all have a dark side, and not being certain if anybody has the capacity to make sure that they never go, really dark. That, like, in a particular situation, we all have the capacity to do the wrong thing, and that comes up during the Days of Future Past story. where there's, because Bishop has amnesia, conveniently, and when he comes back from the future to try to stop an assassination, and we know it's one of the X-Men, but we don't know which one it is. It's funny though, because before he comes back, it's like I have to stop the X-Men. The X-Men are the assassins, and then suddenly it becomes one of them is an assassin, but I don't know which one it is. And so we're kind of inconsistent about that. But Storm's got that great speech where she's like, "It could be any of us. It could be me. Like we all have a dark side. Like who knows what we're capable of."
And she's my other favorite character.
Is she?
Yeah. I just
her voice is awesome.
Yeah, I like her voice, and I like her powers.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I know that's not from the show, but it's...
But you like how they're utilized? Do you like how dramatic it gets every time she uses them?
Yeah, and there's one time...
We always get that theme. Storm's got... I mean, I think we use it for other characters. I don't think any character has a straight-up theme, but I always think of that, like, dawn, dawn, dawn. Like, whenever she starts billowing up clouds, I always think of that as, like, the Storm theme.
Yeah, and I don't really get that whole thing with her being, like...
Claustrophobic?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Claustrophobic is a fear of enclosed spaces.
Oh.
It's like she doesn't want to be in a box. She doesn't want to be in, like, a slender kind of area. I am mildly claustrophobic myself, so I certainly appreciate that.
I know, I'm definitely not, because you always, like, hold me really tightly and make it so that I can't get out.
And that doesn't bother you? You don't have a problem with that?
It doesn't really bother me. Let's see. So, worst characters?
So Wolverine, Storm. Let's talk about a couple others real quick, just because I'm curious about what you think about certain people. I'm surprised. So those are the only two characters you wrote down for favorites?
Yeah.
When we started watching the show, you were just on and on about how much you like Jubilee. And so I'm very surprised that she's not on that list now. So did that change? Is she now on a worst list, or is she just not there anywhere?
She's not there, and she's on Bad Things, kind of.
Okay,
so
sure.
She is... I can't tell if she's a good character or a bad character, because she doesn't get anything... She doesn't get much to do after, like, the first episode.
That's a good point.
I love Jubilee in the first episode.
It's really, and I've never loved that character. That's part of why I thought it was really interesting that you latched onto her like you did. Although I guess I get that. You seem to really like a lot of kind of teenage girl characters in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like things are really revolving around her at the beginning, when the Sentinels are after her, and we kind of get not an origin per se, but we get her first going to the school at the beginning. She's kind of the inciting incident that gets the ball rolling for the main story. I should also mention that it's interesting how serialized this show is. This was a thing that we were doing in certain cartoon shows in the early 90s when primetime live action was really afraid of it, and we didn't do as much of that until we got to Deep Space Nine, Babylon 5, and shows like that. But I always thought it was really interesting that, like, kid shows very often could get away with that when shows for adults couldn't. And you'd think that that you'd have the same thing with kid shows, where we would be concerned that kids might not be as interested if they have to keep up with a show, if they can't just tune in and know what's going on. But if you think about it, like, even, like, 1987 Ninja Turtles, that first season is just a 5-episode miniseries. They didn't even know if they were going to keep making more. And it's sort of a story, from beginning to end. And this show, obviously, and Spider-Man was this way as well, but I think this was better at it. Like, it's got standalone episodes, but it's always remembering its continuity. And like I said, there is that initial inciting incident that even, gets us into the season. And, like, that first season is kind of the Sentinel season.
Yeah.
And we've always got, like, the politics and the legislation in the background. And, of course, we're drawing from a lot of Claremont. We are early on, and this has, Eric and I have had this conversation. He and I were talking about this the other day, and he said, this is one of the only things that feels as Claremont does. Jayson wrote X-Men for years and years. He has one of the longest runs in comics, and he stayed on it forever. And at the beginning of this, we set up the Sentinel stuff. And we're doing that throughout the season, but then we're constantly like seeding things and then coming back to it later. So like Apocalypse gets seeded pretty early, and then we come back and we deal with that.
Oh, and I totally
So I just
forgot
wanted
to
to
write
mention
this
how
down.
serialized this is. Yeah.
With the school getting taken down.
We'll have to talk about episode order. Yeah.
Like, the episode order for that is like...
So that's because of the aired order versus production order. So we should not be watching this in the order that it is on Disney Plus, and I didn't realize that until we had that. So there's an episode where the X-Men, some of them go to Genosha to scope out this island because it's supposed to be like a safe haven for mutants, and it turns out that that's just a ploy so that is it the people making the Sentinels that are doing that? so that they can get their hands on mutants and do forced labor camps. And so our heroes escape at the end. So they do the whole collar thing to suppress your powers, and then they manage to break out. They escape. And that's where we first meet the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, which isn't called that, and I don't know if they're ever called that, but we've got Mystique, who you noticed right away, and I didn't see her, and you were like, oh, that's Mystique. I'm like, no, it's not, and then she was there. But Mystique is there, and Blob is there, and Pyro, I think. Anyway, so then at the end of that, they show back up at the mansion, and the mansion has been destroyed. It's this great cliffhanger. It's like, oh my god, what happened? And we had just seen Xavier a couple scenes earlier saying, I think that's when he says, I've got to go see Moira McTaggart, and then we think he's left, and then the place is deserted. When they get there, it's been blown up, and we don't know why. And then in the order we're watching it in the very next episode, Xavier is back, and they're doing some other mission, and there's no discussion about the destruction of the man. They've been rebuilding it. And it's like we skipped ahead, and it's being rebuilt. I'm like, that's not what I remember, because I've seen this season a few times, and I was like, it's been a long time, so like I don't know this show backward forward, but I was surprised by how much of it came back to me. Like while I was watching, I was like, oh no, I've seen this a bunch of times. Like I thought I'd be surprised by things. Like no, I actually know this really well. It turns out. But anyway, so at the so what I remembered was the very next episode, we see that scene happen again and then continue on, and that's exactly what happens, but you have to watch the episodes in the correct order. So if you are subscribed to Disney Plus, and I think that DVDs have the same problem, don't watch them in the order that they are in the discs or on Disney Plus. Look up the correct order, the production order, and make sure I'm watching that way, because they were actually aired out of order, and the order matters.
Yeah. And another bad thing, the humans, like, I get that they, like, don't like the mutants, but they hate the mutants. Like, they do, like, terrible stuff to them.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't just kill them, they, like, make them slaves and stuff, and I was like...
They see them as less than people, and it's not, of course, supposed to be all the humans, but it's really pretty much the only humans we see are the bad guy humans.
Yeah.
And we do see Senator Kelly get turned around by the end, which I really appreciate. And it's not the same thing that we do in the movies where it's Mystique pretending to be him. I don't think. I'm pretty sure it's actually him by the end of the season. I could be wrong though. I mean, I don't remember where things go that much after this. I've seen the season a bazillion times, and then after it, I've seen the whole show, but it's been a long time, and not multiple times. But anyway, but so like you do have that one human who has kind of a change of heart after he sees what can happen when you try to eradicate a whole kind of people, and we end up doing the almost destroy ourselves through our own hubris thing, where we create Sentinels, we create Master Mold, in order to wipe out the mutants, and then Master Mold decides that human beings themselves are the problem, and so we risk destroying ourselves in our effort to take out that which we don't understand.
Yeah, and I mean, at least he's a senator that, like, I'm a United States senator.
You will replace Senator Kelly's brain and put it into a computer. You can't do that. I'm a United States senator.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like a lot of the humans in this is just really, really oversimplified. And like I get that people can, and we did this in the movies too. I mean, I get that people can be like really, really stupid and like thinking about these things in the simplest way possible. I get groupthink and all of that, but I do think it's really silly that we get like generic picketing to the point of humans yes, mutants no.
Yeah, and also lying to them to make them slaves.
Yeah.
But
that's not like general populace doing that. I just think it's funny that like the general public gets to the point where they're afraid of humans so much, and they see them so much as they're afraid of mutants so much and think of them so much as like lesser than human beings that it becomes really commonplace to just talk about genocide like it's normal and fine. Like we get to a Nazi place with this like really, really fast. And I just wish we saw more of the backlash on the other side, because you definitely have that. Like there's no way, and I realize that this is not a really realistic show, and it gets very, very melodramatic. We're basically looking at a soap opera for children, which is fun. But even in this universe, I am not buying that when you have those people picketing mutants yes, humans no, or humans yes, mutants no, that you wouldn't on the other side have people picketing them, with signs that say something like, well, there's got to be something in the middle somewhere. One thing I really like about the show, Jason, in dealing with the issue of bigotry and intolerance, is that the show really comes down on the side of the mutants are still humans, that it's not a separate species, it's human beings who have superpowers. It's that simple. Like whether you think they're the next step in human evolution or not, whether you think they're technically genetically superior, it doesn't matter. Like we're all human beings, and it really drives that point home a lot. And that's the thing that we miss sometimes in more modern X-Men things. And I guess I just like that because that's how I've always seen it. But I appreciate getting that kind of perspective. Like I get mutants that feel the need to, because they've been marginalized, to like see themselves as a like separate group, a separate class, but not a separate species. And I get like Magneto's argument for that, but I wouldn't think that the majority of mutants would see themselves that way. And certainly Xavier shouldn't, because he wants them to live in harmony.
Yeah.
Is this subject matter like pretty heavy for you? Yeah. Is this stuff that you've given a whole lot of thought to?
Not that much.
It's kind of a good avenue as a kid to be introduced to some of these ideas. The classic X-Men metaphor for racism and intolerance.
Yeah. And
I mean, do you think you're understanding that stuff pretty well, and like the ways in which that happens in real life, like people seeing other people as lesser because they're not the same, and just because they don't understand them and they're afraid of them?
Yeah. And like the thing that I really like about this is just the mutants. Like I like all the mutants, like their powers and the...
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's a big draw when you're a kid, is like, isn't it fun seeing these characters do these spectacular things?
Yeah.
What do you think of the animation and the action in this show?
Oh yeah. It's pretty good. It's very like stylized.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was a lot of the draw and a lot of why it was so popular, was because it felt like nothing else that was on. And I think it's still one of the main things that makes it hold up is it's really got an identity all its own. And I think it carved that out very early. I think there are episodes later that get too far away from the aesthetic. It's like we farmed out to certain animation houses that just made it look too different. But like the Jim Lee influences especially are like really clear. And it's I mean, sometimes there are animation mistakes, and there's things that look silly, and there's things that look rushed, but like overall, it's really flashy.
Yeah.
I've always liked the dark lines, like outlining characters. Like it looks like an inked comic book come to life.
Yeah. Oh, also, I like Juggernaut.
Well, you've always liked Juggernaut.
Yeah, I like Juggernaut and everything. He's the only thing that's good about X3.
And most people wouldn't even agree with that,
Yeah.
but I know you really liked him there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made you like Juggernaut, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Well, I think when I finally allow you to watch it when you're older, you'll really like him in Deadpool 2.
He's in Deadpool 2?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I think one of my favorite episodes is Unstoppable Juggernaut.
Yeah, you want to talk about that for a minute?
Sure. So, part of it is not just Juggernaut, because we don't see him that much in that episode. It's kind of the unstoppable Colossus. And I like...
Which is funny because both of those characters are prominently featured in Deadpool 2.
And
they have a big fight, and it's great.
I like Colossus, and I also like Juggernaut, and they're like the two main people in that episode. And Colossus, I didn't even know like anything about Colossus, and he's like this Russian guy that looks like a human being, but he can turn into like metal.
Yeah.
And
I didn't remember that he could shift between them in this show.
Yeah. I didn't know anything about him. Is Psylocke in this show?
I think Psylocke shows up somewhere. I can't remember. I know she was really popular right around this time. There is a X-Men beat 'em up from I think right before this that she's in, and I think she was pretty popular in the comics, but I'm not sure if she shows up surely somewhere. But I can't remember. Colossus, I remember from a later episode, and did not remember he was in this first season at all. There's an episode where he says "my family" like 150 times, and I just can't stop laughing. He just goes, "My family." His voice is so over the top.
Yeah.
Now that's true of a lot of kind of exotic accents in this with actors that come in and do like really cartoony, fake accents. Like some of them are better than others.
Yeah, like Storm.
Like Rogue.
Yeah.
Well, Storm's not really doing an accent. She's doing more of just kind of like a really dramatic kind of stage thing, I think. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, elements come to me. Like, I don't think she's really doing an accent.
She's just doing like a deeper voice.
I don't think Rogue's southern thing is super over the top like Gambit's Cajun is.
Yeah. I
think her dialogue is, but I don't. But I like that voice actress a lot. I think she's fantastic.
Yeah, Rogue is pretty good. She's probably one of my least favorite characters, though.
Really? Oh.
She's just
sad to hear you say that.
She's just way too over the top.
Yeah.
And I just don't.
Is it the screaming?
That's part of it.
I love her screaming. We could do like top 5 screamers in this show. There's so much of that.
Yeah.
She and Professor X are right at the top.
We haven't
Professor
even
X
gotten to Professor
We've
X.
had a couple, but
Really?
he does it a lot more later, yeah. I love Professor X yelling, it's the best. Ah! It's the best. But hers is like, ah! It's fantastic. This show's all about the screaming.
Yeah.
It's great. And then Wolverine's raging.
Yeah.
Which is also like tantamount to screaming. He's like, ah!
Yeah. And after least favorite characters, we can get to the silliest things.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Episodes.
And then do episodes, sure.
Yeah, because we've kind of already gotten to all of my good and bad things.
Oh, have we really?
Yeah.
What do you think of the villains so far in this show? Like, let's talk about Magneto a little bit and Apocalypse and stuff.
Yeah, Magneto. I don't know. We know a lot about Magneto, but I feel like I just don't know much about Magneto for some reason.
Isn't it? Well, see, I don't have that. But I agree with the first thing you said. I think it's interesting that his backstory is pretty well fleshed out. He's got a similar thing to what he does in the movies with the World War II thing, but I think here it's like, is it Vietnam or I forget what conflict it is, but it's like a layer conflict that is tantamount to the same thing where his family is persecuted and killed, and then he blames human beings and he blames bigotry against his kind. I love his voice a lot. I think a lot of the voice acting in this is so cool and really elevates the material. Like everybody knows how melodramatic it is on the page, and so they translate that to a melodrama that feels almost Shakespearean. It's very stage-like, and so I don't know. I enjoy that a whole lot. I think he and Xavier are both really super well cast.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is, it's interesting how much we know about Magneto and how little we know about Professor Xavier.
Yeah.
Just in the first season.
Yeah. Because we don't know anything about Xavier.
I also thought it was interesting that, I'm not sure how much I buy this, I'm not sure I like this. Enter Magneto is like the third episode, I think. And none of the X-Men are familiar with him. It's like Xavier hasn't seen him in years. It's sort of like the Romulans finally coming back in the first season of TNG. It's like, oh, we haven't seen him forever. Finally, he's coming back. The X-Men are really well established. It seems like the school's been running for a long time, and like Jean Grey and Cyclops and some of these characters have been there for quite a while, and they don't know Magneto. Like, he hasn't shown up yet to try to do anything. That's surprising.
Yeah.
Like, what have the X-Men been doing all this time? Like, have they ever fought anything? Because you get the sense that they've been on missions and they've fought stuff, but we keep introducing everything.
But who have they fought?
Why is it so established, but we have to introduce everything?
Maybe there's just a bunch of bad guys that we don't know about.
Maybe. But I think that's kind of odd.
Yeah. So, another character I don't really like, and that's, again, kind of with Jubilee, we don't know, she doesn't get a lot to do.
Yeah.
Jean Grey.
Yeah, not so far. She basically is going to exist to eventually become the Phoenix and Dark Phoenix. Like, that's why she's here, is so that at some point they can do the big, her big storylines and then write her out.
She does talk about her dark past, though.
Isn't that weird? And we don't know what she's talking about. Like,
Yeah.
And I think Rogue has something like that too, where it's like, again, everybody's really mysterious. It's just like we
Yeah.
don't. Now, eventually we will get Rogue's origin. We'll find out why she has the power she has. Is that, I was going to ask you if that was a thing that you were confused about, like, because you're always talking about how Wolverine has like 3 different powers.
Yeah.
Are you wondering about Rogue yet?
Well, she has 1 power.
No, she doesn't.
Wait, no, she does have 3
doesn't.
powers.
She can fly and she has super strength.
Yeah.
So, I won't give away what it is, but there's a reason for that. She was not born with all of her powers.
Wait. Was her boyfriend a mutant?
No. It doesn't have anything to do with anything we've seen on screen so far, but it does have to do with her ability to soak up people's energy and their powers. Yeah. So it is because of that, but you'll have to see what exactly caused it.
And why it stays for so long.
Yeah. I don't think that's ever going to be made too clear. Not as clear as I wish it was, but yeah.
And, but Wolverine's 3 powers are, he has claws, he can heal really fast, and he can smell danger.
Yes. And that's true in everything. Now, it kind of depends on the continuity or, retconning and stuff, whether the claws are there from the beginning. Because these days we tend to make it bone claws, and then the bone claws get covered up with adamantium, so that would be a third power that they had in the first place. But for a long time, people assumed that Wolverine just had healing factor, and then he's got the smell thing because he's just vaguely got, like, animal abilities, and then, because he's also scrappy, but I don't know if that's a power. And then,
but he's not crappy.
But he's not crappy. And then Weapon X would give him his claws, like Stryker says in X2. So that's not always necessarily supposed to be a power, but retroactively we've kind of made it that way for a lot of things. This show would have been early enough that it wouldn't. I don't think it ever can get to the bone claws. I'm pretty sure that doesn't happen in this particular show.
Should we get to silly things?
Yeah, we can do that.
Also, I don't really like Jean Grey's power. I mean, not her power. I love her power. Her costume.
We should talk about that. Her costume is weird, okay, because on the sides of it, it's flesh-colored. And so, in a lot of shots, and I thought this when I was a kid, I was like, that is a really, like, promiscuous-looking, risque costume for Jean Grey. Like, why does she basically have, like, a painted, and I mean, like, a lot of superhero costumes look painted on, where they're, like, skin tight, and they basically look like they're naked, but you just, like, painted clothes on them. Like, that's just superheroes. But she looks like, from a lot of angles, like you just painted her midsection, and then she's just got flesh on the sides. It's just a flesh-colored costume. It's weird. She's got like pockets and compartments and stuff that are colored in flesh tone.
Yeah.
I've never understood that.
And like
such a weird choice.
Mask piece is like a trapezoid. And it's super weird.
And I'm pretty sure she didn't have that in the comics. Or maybe that was like an early 90s Jim Lee design and I'm not remembering it. I'm not sure. But
yeah. But anything.
Well,
I mean,
but
anyway.
anything. I'm saying Jim Lee influence. I'm pretty sure his big popular X-Men #1 was before this show came out. But I would have to go back and look at dates.
Yeah.
It would be crazy if the show looks the way it does and it didn't have any influence from him. But I'm pretty darn sure I'm right about that.
Yeah. Let's do silly things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I like.
Oh, hey, real quick before we do that, what do you think of the pilot and the whole thing with Morph?
Oh yeah.
I thought it'd be cool to talk about that.
I didn't realize he was gonna die, even though he wasn't in the title, and not the title, in the intro. Oh yeah, and I really like the theme song.
Yeah, so you were surprised by that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I was just double checking myself, but yeah, that Jim Lee's X-Men starts in 91, so I mean this has to be majorly influenced by that. But yeah, it was really cool to introduce a character like that in your pilot, and then you get rid of them right away to say there are going to maybe be higher stakes in this show than you're used to, and I mean, like, whether there ever really are those stakes again is debatable. I mean, I guess so with, like, Dark Phoenix and stuff like that, not to get too far ahead of ourselves and not to give too much away to you, Jason, but but they're not as afraid of talking about, like, death and things like that in the show as we are in a lot of other, 90s kid shows, and even stuff on the same network. Like, this does not feel censored in the same way Spider-Man was. And I've never been totally sure as to why that felt like it had so much more censorship than this does. But yeah, it always feels like the stakes are higher. Now, what's silly about it is, if you're really thinking about it, you see the intro in the pilot, and Morph's not in the intro, and then there's this guy that's there. So one of two things is going to happen: either they have like rotating extra random X-Men that just come in and out, or that's the guy that's not going to make it back. And I wouldn't have, because a lot of pilots won't have the intro. I think a lot of cartoons do, but like a lot of TV pilots don't have the intro yet, and then they give it to you later.
Like Smallville.
Because intros tend to give away too much. Especially because, and it's not that way in this show, but in a lot of shows, intros are made up of footage from later episodes. So you start showing me that footage, you're giving stuff away potentially. I will. By the way, we haven't talked about this yet, but one of the coolest things about the show, of course, is the intro. It's classic, it's iconic, everybody loves it.
And I like the theme song.
And the theme song is amazing. Well, you know what? I said that. There are some. They do this really cleverly. There actually are some shots from episodes in the intro. Now that I'm thinking about it, but it's mostly from like the pilot, and it's so innocuous, like it doesn't really, or like ambiguous. It doesn't really matter that it came from that, and we see it so quickly, and it's intercut with just characters like running at each other and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it feels like it's not from episodes, but now that I'm thinking about it, most of it actually is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it at the end of the season when Cyclops is like, "We're leaving no one behind this time." Like they lost Morph, and Wolverine was like, "Don't leave him behind." He's like, "Morph!" And then you get to the end, and I guess Cyclops is become a better leader because he didn't leave anybody behind, even though I wasn't. I was kind of more on Wolverine's side at the beginning when he did that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cyclops.
Sorry, go ahead.
Cyclops like starts out as like not a great leader, and then he's suddenly like, boom, he's a good leader.
Or at least an adequate one.
An okay one.
Cyclops is weird in the show because it feels like there is certain drama that you expect with him, so we just do it, but it feels like for no good reason. Like, it's the same problem the movies have, except this is almost worse because we get more screen time for him. So, Cyclops and Wolverine don't like each other. Mm-hmm. For no good reason, really. I mean, I guess it's just Wolverine's a loner and not enough of a team player, but then Wolverine ends up being right sometimes about the way he wants to, run off and take care of a problem, and Cyclops kind of gets in the way of progress some, so it's hard not to just, like, not be, with Cyclops in the moment. And so I guess that's part of why I'm saying, like, they kind of dislike each other for no reason, because there's not enough of a reason for Cyclops to be, like, upset with Wolverine when he is a lot. But a lot of it also is just a love triangle thing. And it's got that same movie problem of Wolverine is in love with Jean Grey. I don't know why. And, yeah, and also they're hardly ever on screen together. So he's like, Jean! And I'm like, why are you so into Jean Grey? You're like, I never see you and Jean in a scene together.
Yeah. Maybe he's, like, secretly in love with her or something. But
I don't think it's a secret.
With her, too.
Yeah, I don't think it's really that much of a secret, though. Well, maybe. I don't know. Because you got that part where she's like, I'll be waiting for you. And he's like, me too. But, that's where a lot of that soap opera comes from.
Yeah.
I like that there's as much conflict with characters in the show, though. It's a fun kind of like dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
And it's trying to be a little too like 90s edgy with some of that, I think. But I do really enjoy like having anti-heroes or having like heroes that are again kind of ambiguous where you don't know if they're anti-heroes or not.
Yeah.
Particularly with Gambit. It's like, can we trust that guy? I don't know.
Yeah. Or Cable.
And then he keeps proving himself. Or Cable.
Yeah.
Cable's kind of just there to make, like, really silly, edgy one-liners. It's like, the wild man of Borneo.
Funny stuff?
Yeah. I know what your number one funny thing is going to be. I know for sure what that is.
So my number 3.
But we're not gonna get to that yet, right? Oh, I can't wait to do it. I can't wait to do it.
So my number 3 is Wolverine going "Rrr," and then he just falls down.
Wait, where does that happen?
I think it's in. I don't remember what episode it is. But there's a time where he was like, I think he was like gassed or something, and he goes, "Rrr," and then he just falls down.
That's amazing.
Ooh,
can I guess at your number 2?
Okay.
Can I guess at your number 2? I think, and I might, if this isn't on there, I might be able to turn it into like 4 or 5 for you. It appears to be the Ace of Spades, the 8 of Spades.
No. That would be like my number 4, probably.
Yeah, but we have to talk about that because it's amazing.
Yeah, because it's
Sentinel?
because it's like super tiny, and the Sentinel, because like Gambit does a card trick. You want to see a card trick? And basically
he charges the card.
And then he throws it.
It goes to the ground.
And it's super tiny, so the Sentinel's like looking at it, and it's like on the ground.
Really contemplatively.
Like, what is that? It appears to be the Ace of Spades, and it just explodes on him.
Oh, it is the Ace of Spades. That's right. Yeah. That was amazing. That's one of my favorite moments in the whole show. And then again also that you will replace Senator Kelly's, you will remove Senator Kelly's brain and put it in a computer, and then he just goes, "What?"
You can't say that to me. I'm a United States Senator.
Senator? Is that like a Minotaur?
Wait.
Is that like a Minotaur?
No. But that is not my number 2.
Oh, it's not. I can't wait. Okay, what is your number 2?
Do not be afraid. I will make a snowstorm.
I will make a snowstorm. So Storm is trapped in a box, and she's been immobilized and taken out, and it's really traumatic for her, of course, because she's claustrophobic, and yeah, that is played like just like her kryptonite and like her prevailing character weakness. Like of course nobody is like super drawn in the show, at least not yet. I think the characters get a little more dimension as we go, and certain characters get more dimension than others. Storm is basically so far, and she'll get more later, I think. Storm so far is basically like good leader, probably should be leading instead of Cyclops, and then just like I don't know, disciplined and like, you know, really stalwart, always does the right thing, and scared of enclosed spaces. Like, that's what we know about this character so far.
Yeah. So basically, she's in the box.
Yeah.
And Jubilee is also in a box, and I think it's Jubilee, and she's like, "Do not be afraid. I will make a snowstorm." And just the way she says it.
The line delivery, yeah, that's great.
And then number 1.
So Jason's number 1 is going to be about Bishop from Days of Future Past. Go ahead, Jason.
Assassins for the future.
Okay, so what happens is Bishop gets sent back in time by Forge in order to stop an assassination.
LaForge.
LaForge. In order to stop an assassination. The time travel is, or the way they talk about it is a little bit weird, because they're like, Forge is like, my theory is if we stop this assassination, none of these horrible things will happen. And then Bishop even breaks it down where he's like, none of the camps, none of the this, none of the them. Like, yeah, a lot of these sorts of things have an inciting incident that pretty clearly leads us to all. Like, is it a theory or is it just pretty clear? Like, you could say it's possible this would still happen at some point, but to just assume that the future is probably going to be as horrible as it is no matter what happens is very strange. That's really like fate obsessive. It's odd, right? It's like you can always kind of pinpoint these things, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not always, you know? now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, you could say, like, you know, if JFK hadn't been assassinated, maybe certain things would happen or wouldn't, who knows? This doesn't seem like that kind of a case. This seems to be, like, a little more cut and dry than that. I would think. I could be wrong about that. I don't know. The more I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure if I'm right about that. But anyway, so Bishop goes back in time, and like I said, he has, like, really convenient amnesia. And he's like, I know I came back to the 90s for some reason. They keep going, the 90s, go to the 90s. And so he... Oh, sorry. But before we get to your thing, I want to talk about Days of Future Past, because this is a thing that I thought was really funny. So we get all these convenient clues for Bishop, like the universe knew that he needed to be pushed in the right direction. And so... there's all these things in the scene when he first shows up that give him hints to tell him what's going on so that he can get to the X-Men. Like, there's these kids walking by that are talking about a new video game, and they're like, I just got my new video game! Assassin! And then he goes, the assassin! I have to stop the assassin! And it's hilarious. It's like, just all these really convenient things happen to get him there. And doesn't
it have Punisher on it?
I think so. Yeah, it looks like maybe a Punisher knockoff or something. And then he gets to the X Mansion finally, and he's like, I know one of the X-Men is the assassin. And then he's in the mansion, and then he's just talking to Xavier and most of the X-Men, and Gambit's not there. And then Gambit shows up, and he goes. And he goes, everyone can relax. Gambit has arrived, because Gambit always talks in the third person. And then Bishop's like, he's the assassin! And then he picks up his gun, and he points it at Gambit. And he says...
No, that's not where it is.
That's not where it is?
It's... I think
this is going to be over a commercial break.
It's before that. It's when he just comes into the mansion. He comes into the mansion, and he says, assassins!
Oh, that's right! They have a big fight. Okay, so this is even before the Gambit thing, because that's right, the Gambit thing is the very end of the episode. Because he's like, Gambit's the assassin, and then we're like, oh, and then the episode's over. No, you're right, that's what it is. And he just starts shooting everybody when he first gets there, because he thinks they're all assassins, and then suddenly it changes to just one of them is. I don't understand that.
You're in the commercial break.
Everything changes in the commercial break. So, we go to commercial. So the first thing he says is...
assassin!
He goes, assassin! And then he fires into the camera. Mm-hmm. And then it goes blank.
Super cool.
Goes to commercial. Yeah, it's super cool. And then it comes back, and we see it a different way. They've retconned the first thing he said, and now it's something else, and he says...
for the future!
And then he fires again! It's fantastic!
And it's even funnier without the commercials.
Oh, yes, of course.
Because he's like, assassins! For the future.
It's exactly, but I think it's funnier than this. It's exactly that thing we talked about with the Tick in the Tick versus Arthur's bank account.
When he goes spoon,
and he's got nothing on him,
and then the commercial happens, and then he has this.
He has that whole apparatus where he fires the
grapple hook.
The grappling hook, yeah.
Yeah, that's really funny.
So, Days of Future Past, we will not be able to get away from. Like, we will keep going to that future and see different ways that he changed and stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I think is weird is doing Apocalypse as early as we do it. Like, episode 8 or 9, we're already doing Apocalypse.
Yeah.
And he is pretty, underdeveloped. He just wants to destroy everything instead of just the mutants or just the humans. It's not super thoughtful or thought-provoking. It's kind of just a way to do a big epic. And that's the big thing happening in comics right then, because that was right around Age of Apocalypse. And, like, I appreciate doing recent stuff, but it's too early for Apocalypse.
Yeah. Should we do best episodes?
Yeah, go ahead.
So one of my favorite episodes is Days of Future Past. And,
oh, cool.
I actually didn't write it down, and I'm just like, wait, that is one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, what do you like about it?
I like Bishop. I like the whole thing about traveling to the future, and I like it.
Past from the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the really weird thing that I don't get about this is why set it all the way in the future to like 2055. Like, why set it like 70 years into the future?
Why not?
I don't know.
Because they want all the X-Men to have been killed, and
well, yeah.
Like it's easier to buy a dystopia when that much time has passed, and there's been so much time for it to get terrible. Like they're doing it kind of like Terminator, except they're going farther than Terminator.
Yeah.
And way farther into the future. You see all these dates, and it gets kind of surreal, right? Because one of them dies next year.
Yeah,
like
Storm dies next year, and Jubilee died when I was born.
In 2010. What did you think of the big action scene that we get at the beginning of Days of Future Past in the future? Like, I think the animation and all that stuff is really quite stellar.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like with the Sentinels and because remember Bishop is working for them at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
Like he's a mutant hunter that works for the Sentinels, and he's like, oh, they treat us just fine. And then very, very conveniently, that's the day the Sentinels decide you've met your quota. We don't need you anymore. And I think that's weird. You'd think like if they have mutant hunters that are mutants that have specific powers that they need, they would just work them until they were dead, not until they reached some arbitrary number of kills. That's so weird.
Yeah.
That was just so that in that moment, Wolverine would be proven right, and he would have a reason to want to go back in time. But I don't even know why we need the plot point that he was working for the Sentinels.
Yeah.
I guess just to make him as morally ambiguous as we do, you know, a lot of the other X-Men in the show. I guess that's the only reason to do that, just to have some edge.
Yeah. And then, they find out that, Gambit's the assassin, but he's not actually the assassin. Mystique is the assassin.
Yes.
And I don't get why Mystique chooses Gambit. I don't know why she doesn't choose, like, Cyclops or something.
Well, but I mean, if whoever she picked, you could say the same thing, right? You could be like, why this instead of this? Like, I guess it's just arbitrarily in X-Men. I think she's just trying to frame one of the X-Men.
Yeah. It's just, I feel like there are, like, 3 main X-Men and 3, like, secondary.
Are you wondering if she even would know enough about Gambit to pretend to be Gambit?
Yeah, that too.
Well, I do like that she picks one of the X-Men that was at the camp in Genosha, though. Because they were all there together. And, like, she hasn't really fought the X-Men outright, I don't think. So if it's, like some of those other characters she maybe hasn't even interacted with.
Yeah. But if she would pick someone from Genosha, why not pick, like, Storm or something? Because I feel like Storm is one of, like, the main X-Men, and Gambit is one of, like, the secondary X-Men.
No,
like,
I mean,
Gambit,
that's a fair point.
Jean Grey, and, like, Rogue, or Jubilee.
I think the answer is to give Gambit something to do, A, and B, and this is probably more important, to continue to make the audience uncertain of whether or not we can trust Gambit. Because that's been kind of a theme throughout the season, is like, he's the wild card. Wolverine is a loner, but we can... wild card. Wolverine is a loner, but we always know whose side he's on. We know where his loyalties are. I mean, there's that question of, like, is your loyalty more to yourself than to the X-Men? Because we had that whole thing toward the beginning with him and Sabretooth. You remember that?
Yeah.
Where he's angry with Xavier for, like, nursing Sabretooth back to health. But with Gambit, I mean, we really don't know where his loyalties are.
And one of my favorite episodes is Cold Vengeance, where he fights with Sabretooth.
Oh, yeah!
That icy place.
I forgot about that.
And then he
one.
goes to that town, and I like that.
You like that one?
Because I like all that stuff with Wolverine. And
that feels like a lot of those standalone Wolverine comics from the early mid-90s. It's like we went off and just did one of those for a minute.
Yeah. And it's just a Wolverine episode, and we don't really get many of those.
Where like he
person.
befriends that tribe and.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. I think there's some goofy stuff in that episode.
Yeah, I think that's the episode where he goes run.
That bad guy kid that like gets all upset because he used to be the popular one, but now they all love Wolverine. Like, he's insufferable.
Yeah, he's just some random guy.
I mean, I like that the episode knows that he's as much of an idiot as he seems to be, but I have a hard time buying that he was ever thought of as like the great, warrior or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, they don't like me anymore because Wolverine can catch fish. But you're right, we don't do a lot of episodes where we just go follow one character. We'll do more of that later, certainly. And we'll do it more with Wolverine, too. I do believe.
Yeah.
I do believe.
And then...
Yeah, I'm trying to think if we do that with anybody else, where they just go off and have an episode.
I don't know.
Nah, I don't think so.
I mean, Cyclops and Jean Grey have an episode, and that's like my least favorite episode.
Remind me what happens in that one.
Captive Hearts. That's the one with the...
is that the one with the Morlocks?
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that! I don't like the Morlocks at all. They're obnoxious.
Yeah. They're just... They're weird, and I don't get how, like, they're like X-Men that are like... I don't know how even they could get those powers or whatever to look they're really mutants. Strange.
Yeah, because they're mutants. I mean, because having the mutant gene hits everybody in different ways. And so the Morlocks are like the weirdest looking ones that have the most difficult time assimilating into regular civilization. Like, the idea of the Morlocks makes a lot of sense. I think for me, a lot of it with the Morlocks has always just been voice casting. They're always the most cartoony and like weird sounding characters that just it takes me out, and I have a hard time taking it seriously. I can't remember if this is a Morlock or not, but there's one. But you made me think of another silly moment, and I know there's at least one Morlock that sounds like this, so I'm gonna mention this real quick. Do you remember in the Apocalypse episode where so Mystique is pretending to be a scientist who has a cure for being a mutant, and Rogue has like a whole character arc in like 15 minutes where she thinks she wants the cure and then decides at the end that she likes being a mutant and doesn't want the cure and will sacrifice being able to touch another human being, like she says, right? And in pretending to be this scientist, Mystique is working for Apocalypse, and it turns out they don't actually have a cure. This is how Apocalypse is transforming people into his horsemen of the apocalypse. And we get Angel introduced in the previous episode in like the last 5 minutes, and then we see Angel turn into Archangel and back into Angel, and his whole big grand character arc that happens in the comics happens in about 20 minutes. And it's hilarious. But anyway, I bring this up because there's this ridiculous moment where they're offering the cure on the street, and there's this, and again, I think it might be one of the Morlocks, but I'm not sure. But there's this old woman mutant who goes, "Pick me!"
Really?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I didn't remember that.
And then she keeps coming back through the episode, just like having bizarre lines or line readings like that. It's like, ah! Yeah, it's great. I'm with you. Captive Hearts is the worst episode of the season.
Yeah. I think that's all I have.
Is it?
Yeah.
Are you excited to watch more?
Yes. I am excited to watch more.
The cliffhanger sets up Sinister.
Yeah, I don't know who the heck that is.
You don't know anything about Mr. Sinister?
Yeah.
You don't know what he looks like?
Nope.
Oh, so a couple other questions I have for you real quick.
Yeah.
So do you, because I don't want to give too much away, but do you know anything about Rogue in connection to Mystique?
No.
Okay, so that'll come into play soon. And you don't know anything about like Sinister in connection to Jean Grey and Cyclops and all that? Okay.
No, I don't even know who Sinister is.
And then the other question I had, I'm curious to see what you think of him. I think is the coolest bad guy design in X-Men. People have wanted Sinister in the movies forever, and they've been teasing him, or they were teasing him in the Fox movies constantly, right before Fox got bought out by Disney, and then we never got to it. So I'm sure that'll be one of the first things they do when they finally reboot X-Men, because that's the big villain, the most popular villain we've not seen yet. I mean, they've seeded it constantly. We keep having Essex mentioned, and his name is Essex. Anyway, the other thing I was going to ask you is if you knew that Juggernaut and Xavier are brothers before you saw that episode.
No.
I was wondering if you were familiar with that. That's why he wears the helmet, just like I think that's one of the reasons he wears the helmet, just like Magneto. So that Xavier can't get in his brain. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. That
it has the same effect. I think they talk about that in that.
Yeah, and I actually forgot that they were brothers.
Until just now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wait, but aren't Magneto and Professor X?
No, they're not related. They're just friends.
Oh, I thought they were brothers.
No, they just set up the X-Men mansion together, the school. Anyway.
That's about it.
All right, cool. Well, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back with you when we finish Season 2, of course. Got lots more father and son videos coming your way on all kinds of things that we're going to be reviewing and discussing. We've got several in the can. We're really excited about just the variety of different things that we're talking about for you. So leave your comments. Tell us what you think about the first season of X-Men. We'll do this for all 5 seasons. And in the meantime, I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Jayson.
See you later, folks.